name is Paul Gazowski. I'm a member of our Agricultural Commission here in Lee, and I kind of MC this evening thing. And I don't have any background in farming. Many of you heard this before, but if you haven't heard it, I have no background in farming. I'm a retired teacher. I've been on our Ag Commission for about 9 years. It's been a good experience for me to learn about farming, and I think it's been a good experience for farmers to have somebody around who doesn't think the way they do. And so it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Our sponsors are the Lee Agricultural Commission and the Lee Public Library, and our library has a new library director who's here tonight with us. This is Ruth Eifert, and Ruth is very experienced and as a director, and she's coming to us from Georgetown, Massachusetts. So on the table in front of Annie and Ruth is books that came from our library, and I think from Wendy's.
No, I just donated them to the library.
Okay. Well, from our library then, and that somewhat address the topics that we'll be dealing with tonight. You also need to know that we're being taped tonight by Scott and Cindy Jones. They've been doing the whole series this is the 3rd year on DVD. All the DVDs are available in our library for loan. So if you missed anything along the way, or if you're in the library and say hi to Ruth, just breeze the books and take a look at the DVDs. The committee that actually organizes this is comprised of Donna Lee Woods, who's in the back. Donna Lee is a member of the Ag Commission and operates Hickory Nut Farm on the other side of town with her husband Phil. And my wife Annie Gazowski is on the committee, and Chuck Cox is on the committee. Chuck was not able to be here tonight. We would like again to thank the Grange for hosting us, and Jimmy Brady for getting it nice and warm in here and helping us out in every way possible. And I think I've covered it all. Tonight we have Boulder Brook Stables on the south side of Lee with us, and we have Misty Meadows Farm on the east side of Lee with us. And I could best describe this. For me, this is kind of like a spiritual journey, if you will, tonight. And I think that if you haven't visited either of these places, you really need to. So the focus will be on large animals and horses, and obviously our relationship with them, which can be quite intimate at times and very telling. And Wendy at Misty Meadows is a master of many, many things. Our format will be in 2 parts, and Amanda's going to go first. She will have 15 to 20 minutes to present. You will have time to ask questions after that. So hang on to your questions, and then we'll switch over at about the half-hour point and go to Wendy, and she'll present briefly, and we'll have questions and answers. And then probably a little after 8 o'clock, we'll open it up to everybody. We have some refreshments for afterwards, and please hang out and talk to people. It's a lot to ask these presenters to come in and talk about their lives, the things they're devoted to in 15 or 20 minutes. But you know, we are more forgiving than, say, Fox News, where they would give you like 30 seconds to talk about your life, and it would probably turn it upside down. So Boulder Brook Stables was founded in 1994.
1993, 94. Yep.
94. Having taught at Oyster River since 1975 and living in the small world of New Hampshire, Amanda's a former student of mine. So please meet Amanda Hansen. She's going to talk about Boulder Brook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for having me. So Boulder Brook Stables, if I don't know how many of you know where we're located, we're out on 125 on the Epping-Lee line. It's actually the Grumbling property. The Grumblings and myself have been connected for about 11 years now. And we made a large endeavor to create this cool place that is a lifelong dream that I started when I was little. Both my parents were instructors. Both my parents have trained horses. They actually met through horses. My mom rode until she was about 8 months pregnant and finally decided one day she couldn't get on anymore, and that was that. I guess I had the gracious opportunity to have a babysitter that could take me trail riding to put me to sleep. Things you did back in the 70s, I guess. So anyhow, both my parents taught. My mom actually taught at an all-girls camp on Lake Winnipesaukee, and she taught girls of all nations, all languages, and she also ran a program in Ossipee where we came from. So then we moved down here, and they got normal jobs, and the horses stayed in our lives, and I horse showed for years and whatnot, and eventually decided to go professional. So after showing as a little one for many years on my little pony, and the irony in that is my daughter now has a matching pony. We got into doing a lot of training. So in '93, I graduated high school in '93 and proceeded to start teaching at home in our little yard, in a little farm in Nottingham, where I just started slowly building my business. Through high school, I had a good working student position at a farm in Epping, formerly known as Spinnaker Hill Farm. And Cynthia and Jim Marcotte took me under their wings and allowed me to grow there. So, see the timeline here. '95, I moved to a small farm in Nottingham and started doing more lessons in boarding and caretaking. And then '97, I moved to Spinnaker Hill with my full business. And Jim and Cindy were gracious enough to let me run my business out of their farm until 2003, where they supported me through the growing process. We ended up, when we parted ways, I had 25 horses under my full care at that point, with a full lesson program of about 60 students. So we were pretty busy. So then we had some growing pains after that. We bounced around to a couple of farms. I was in Brentwood for about a year, 2 years. And then while the construction of the current location began, we actually were over in Packers Falls Road for a year while the building of the new facility was being done. So currently we have a 40 stall facility, and we have a 100 by 200 coverall arena where we do our training and our teaching. That's my dad, to go back and talk about how my parents were very involved in all of our riding, and my mom. Lots of teaching, lots of horse shows, lots of students in and out of my life. A lot of great opportunities for these kids, and most of these kids are still in my life in some fashion, which is lots of fun in that I've had this opportunity to cross paths over the last 20 years with many people, and to have these people still in our lives in some fashion. They have their own kids now, married, have been to all their weddings, all these fun things, and there's opportunities to be part of their lives. And even raising, foals, and this foal is still with us. His name is Kismet. He's now 16 years old, and he's still with us. And this is my old horse, Ziggy, who I've had the opportunity to own for 25 years. He's one of the main building parts of my business. He is 33 years old this year. And very happy. So as you can see, a lot of showing is done in our barn and such, but I also have a lot of clients who have their horses for their own reasons, for their own parts of their family. A lot of clients trail ride or just train and continue their education and learn how to be with their horses. So we're not just doing showing, we're not just doing those kind of things. This is one of the original farms that we started in Nottingham. This is a little farm on South Summer Street in Nottingham, if anybody's aware of the area. So little ones for the years to the new construction of the facility. So, sorry, I feel like I'm skipping a little bit here. As we grow and we've been doing things, this is the construction of the facility as it went along. In 2000, 2004 and 5, and into 2006. So getting into the guts of the building, everybody always asks about our coverall building because that's a big interest as far as being a fabric building. So this was a really cool operation. This went up in 2 weeks from start to finish. So 3 guys took all these Erectoset pieces and put them all together and stood them up in 8 hours with 2 cranes. So at the beginning of the day there was nothing, at the end of the day there was a building. And then one week later, it ended up, the covers and all happened. This was like the very beginning before the indoor got to go up, and then we have that. So the whole operation's been an incredible lifelong dream for me personally. My parents joked that, this is back in 4th grade, I was like, oh, I'll have a facility of my own someday, and my parents are like, oh, have at it. We'll do the best we can. I mean, we have a 3-stall barn at my parents' house, times we'd have 4 or 5 horses, you make do with what you got, and we did. And now I get the opportunity in my life to actually experience what I wanted, a 150-acre farm, 50 horses, and a growing training and lesson program, teaching and working with people and horses to learn how to be together and do cool things, whether it be horse showing or just being great partners, is kind of what we try to encourage. So that's where we're at. The different pictures of the farm, the indoor now as it exists. We use it for lots of different things. We do lots of disciplines, and I try not to use it for too much storage. I like to keep it as our riding arena, but we do it for different, lots of different types of activities that we do over at our farm. This is our tack rooms. The tack rooms were all hand done by Scott Grumbling and Kevin Dyer. We did all of our own work in the guts. So we did hire out the main structure of all the buildings, but we did all of the work ourselves. So many local people, Kim Dollar was with me the whole time through all this, building process. Lots of hours urethaning and building and cutting, and you learn lots of things when you do your own building like this. But we didn't hire out any of this. We did all of the guts. We did all of it. So it's our own work. So this is some of our showing kids. We've been, really active with our 4-H in the community and trying to make sure that we are being supportive in that way, as well as taking clients all the way to World Championships. So this client had the opportunity to go to the Pinto World Championships. And now she's an assistant trainer with a big quarter horse operation down in Massachusetts. So it's been fun to stay connected to going through with all of my students over the years and having good, solid relationships with all of them. This is actually one of the horses I bred. He's now 7 years old. He was born at the farm, and he's the only one to be born at the farm at this point. His name is Ollie. And this picture of some of our accomplishments. So we show at local organizations in the area. This particular one was the Silver Heels Riding Club, and it's based out of Fremont, New Hampshire. And they run a series of 6 shows. And then this is our year-end banquet. And then this is just showing down at the Big E. There's lots of shows down there. This particular show is the big quarter horse show called Region 6. And then this was last year's Deerfield Fair. We had lots of great ribbons there. It was a lot of fun. It's a good time, and we try to support our local fairs and all that kind of stuff. And then I just see now my daughter has a matching pony and all ironies of everything. So that's kind of what I've accomplished in the last, 35 years of my life. To have a dream, put it together, and finally have the opportunity to live it. So that's it.
You must have some questions, and Yes.
Yes.
What's your life expectancy for the covered?
There's a 20-year life expectancy, so we have about 10 years to kind of get that organized, and because all we have to do is recover the metal frame. So we won't have to, we won't have to do anything with the frame itself. And each section of the building is its own, like a sail, so it slides through keating strips, and it attaches. So we just have to zip them over. We know how to do it. We learned how to do it. So when the time comes, we can buy all the pieces and just recover it.
How did you do with the snow?
It did great. I was very pleased with it. We had a couple of sections that got real stretchy, but it all came off, so it was great. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the building. Very, very happy with it.
If you have never seen this facility, you can see it a little bit from Route 125, but can folks come to visit?
We definitely love giving tours, but we want to make sure that we're available, so we ask that you do call ahead of time. We are easily found on the website, and there is a phone number at the gate as well. It is a gated property, but so make sure that we do have time for people to understand and see everything. We like to have someone available to show you around and see, to make you understand everything that we have going on.
It's a beautiful place. You did all the interior work.
Yep, we did all of our own interior work.
So if you've never been over, you should go. So you and Ziggy have been together for a really long time. 25 years. 25 years. Yeah. You got any Ziggy stories that are good ones?
We have a lot of Ziggy stories. So the opportunity to purchase Ziggy was an interesting adventure in itself, and the beginning of him is what's most interesting. I was going into high school, my freshman year of high school. My parents finally agreed that I could have a horse. I had grown out of my ponies, and they finally agreed that I could have a horse, but I had a budget of $1,000. That was it. My dad wasn't going to budge. So as I was at a horse show at a farm in the area, I saw posted on the board on a 3x5 index card, a UNH student was needing to sell her horse that she had left in Vermont at a camp because she needed money for books, and she couldn't bring him to school with her. So it said $800. Ha, here I am. Yay, I win. Grab the card, take off, and go find my dad. So we found the girl, we met her, and we drove to Vermont and met him. He was in a field of 75-ish horses, because, in Vermont, they just keep them outside. It's okay. In November. I think we went and saw him in October. And then, so he wasn't in too bad a condition at that point. They came in with the wrong horse twice. The grooms did. They finally come in, because he has a big distinguishing heart on his hip. That's just his gray hair, for the way his hair grew in that particular place. So we finally come in, we ride him, my mom rides him, we really like him. So my dad makes an offer of $500, and the girl's like, oh, I don't know. So we go home, and the most painful 2 weeks of my life happened. And she called back, and she said she'd take it. So we drove back to Vermont 3 days or 4 days after that phone call, and it was really sad. They had had some big storms up there. He hadn't probably eaten. He had dropped 100 pounds from the time we had seen him to the time we had returned. So we cringed and brought him home. And he had rain rot over 100% of his body. And he was drinking water out of our hands at the McDonald's on the way home because he was so dehydrated. So we got him home, and then Dr. Sokovich was gracious enough to be supportive at that point and guide us through refurbing this horse that he wasn't convinced was going to make that winter, because now we're in mid-November, no weight on him, bad body condition, and a questionable digestive system because he had had diarrhea so badly. So that was my winter project. I go out there every day, carefully picking and grooming and taking off scabs the size of small tennis balls from the raw, the skin and the hair and everything else. And then the following that summer, he started being able to be ridden, and Jan Neal helped us for a while giving us a direction, and she's how I connected with Cindy Marcotte. And our training just progressed from there. I had the opportunity to show some great shows on him, jump really big jumps, and just continue my education. And we did all kinds of crazy stuff together. I rode trail rides all over town. We would go on 20-mile trail rides with my mom regularly. You know, her horse and her old horse is still alive. She's 34. And both of them, Dancer and Ziggy, both started the business because they were the original lesson horses. So they are very, very special to us, and the fact that we've even had the opportunity to have them this long is pretty awesome. So that, you know, yeah, he's done so many things for so many of, just not myself, but so many of my students. You know, and my little $500 horse, Kim Dollar took to, or Rothwell, I should say now, was able to show the big quarter horse shows and win classes of 35 and 40, you know, horses at a time. And, you know, we always chuckled that, you know, she had a very inexpensive outfit and had her little $500, you know, horse in her hand, and, you know, would very proudly win these classes. And it was pretty cool, you know, that we had these opportunities and that my students had these opportunities to grow and learn from him.
Sir, yes.
Yes.
I'm really interested in barn management, and how do you manage the composting of the manure?
It removes off the property.
Yeah, and you send it somewhere?
Yeah.
Where do you send it?
There's a farm in Farmington that takes it. It's actually a client of mine, and he takes it. And I don't know what he does with it from there. I know he has hay fields, and he's been reclaiming a couple of big hay fields, and he's been using it for that. We do use some of it on our property for our own hay fields. And then the rest of it's in process of compost as well on a different part of the farm. So yes, it's all being reused primarily on hay fields. Yep.
Mention the sifters.
Oh yes, so on our day-to-day barn management stuff, thank you Dahlia. Dahlia's been my barn manager and has helped me do this as she's moved on to being a vet tech now, but she's been my barn manager for 5 years now? Yeah, something like that. So in our barn, 40 stalls, you think, wow, that must take a really long time. And we have these two really cool machines called stall sifters. And it was one of the big investments that we made right at the beginning. We can save about 20 cubic yards of bedding a month, like a dumpster full a month approximately, in waste of clean bedding by using these sifters. So we can do 40 stalls, 2 to 3 people in about 3 hours, and limit the amount of wood product that goes out into the manure pile, because we don't use shavings, we use sawdust. So we work very hard on a day-to-day basis to be, keep the overhead down and be conservative on the waste.
Is your question prompted by just the sheer volume of managing
No, I've owned horses for years, and I was always having issues with compost management and how to do it on your own. And I just was wondering how you do it on a large scale, if like we couldn't even figure it out on our own. And we didn't use shavings. We moved from shavings to the pellets.
Okay, yeah.
Well, as soon as we found out about the pellets, we said that's a really good idea because you don't have all that waste that you would have.
Right.
And I was just wondering, because we're thinking about doing it again, so.
Yeah, no, we use the sawdust, we use the sifters, and then as far as the manure itself, the management of it, we either will use the dumpsters, because Scott has a whole array of dumpsters because he has a hook lift truck, and or I have this client who he has a big dump truck, and he comes in with his tractor and just loads it and goes away with it. So that kind of, yeah, well, it's the best way for us, definitely.
While we have a little break, this is Dahlia Sawtell. Can you stand for a second, please?
Say hi, Dahlia.
Just to kind of show you how Lee's a small town, and these farm families are integrated small families. This is Eric and Tina's daughter. She graduated from UNH with a degree in large animal.
Equine and dairy. Sorry.
And you're in Deerfield now, but you were with Amanda for a long time.
And so I'm working under Kim Brothwell, who is
Yeah.
one of the 4 vets at Deerfield, and Kim was a long time student of Amanda's as well. So now she's their vet.
Now she's our vet, so it's kind of cool how that all came around, because yeah, Kim's been rode with me for over 10 years, and now her dad rides with me. So.
Other questions? I'm just aching to ask this question.
Okay.
So, are horses smarter than people?
So, because I deal with them every day, yes. Horses have a great ability to read our bodies versus listen to our words. So, in that sense, yes, because they will read what you're doing, not just what you're saying, because they speak in body language, not verbal. So there's no hiding anything from them.
So does Ziggy ever get the advantage on you?
Oh, he did for years. He had one up on me on a regular basis. That's how you learn, though. You learn how to become that partner with them.
And you can recognize when this is happening to you?
Yeah, oh yes. Yeah, and that's what I spend a lot of time doing now is teaching people how to understand that they're being trained by their horse. Because they do. They're quicker to know and observe what's happening because of their language and the way they are. They're on top of it before we are. Because we're not as trained in body language
As they are.
as they are. Yep.
Any final questions for the time being? Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to Misty Meadows. We've got to do a computer switch here. This is Wendy Snowfog, and Wendy is a friend and a neighbor and a really accomplished individual, a master of many, many things. She is an herbalist, and Misty Meadows, among the many things that Misty Meadows does, they grow a lot of their own herbs, and they administer a lot of medicinal practices. And Wendy is on top of all these things. She obviously is an accomplished businesswoman. She has been published. She's a great teacher. And she is just a really fine soul. And this is a rich relationship between plants and people and people. So Wendy has a lot of wisdom to share with us, and a lot of business acumen at the same time. So Wendy and I worked together on a few things. I did some photography and some video work for her, some of it a while back, and it was really kind of interesting. She is, the farm kind of straddles, mostly in Lee. Part of it's in Durham.
No, we're all in Lee.
You're all in Lee.
We are now.
Yeah, and it's one of those pieces of land that was set aside for easement purposes. It has a rich network of trails that Clyde's in the back there. That's her husband, Clyde. That Clyde kind of constructed, and some outbuildings, I think, that are there. And my understanding is you're welcome to walk this beautiful place and come visit pretty much any time. Just let Wendy know you're there, and you can walk this network of trails. And
Yeah,
just
I'll talk more about that toward the end of the thing. So my name is Wendy Fogg, and my husband back there, Clyde, some of you know him. And I run a little place down on Wednesday Hill Road called Misty Meadows. So what I've learned over the years is that really life does happen in the garden. And so I'm going to give you a quick little recap of how things came to be where they are today. In 1982, we purchased a farm on Wednesday Hill Road because I was out walking one day and came across this ramshackled place, and there was something about it that reached out and grabbed me by the heart. So I went home and I said to my husband, I found the place where we're supposed to be. He said, I thought you just went for a walk. I said, I did, but there's this great place over there. Long story short, the great place was owned by his dad and mom, and I didn't know anything about it. And just a little while later, we were the proud owners of a house that he said we better save now or burn down. So we saved it then, and the two of us went to work like dogs to bring back this old farmhouse, which we did. Not too long into that, we realized that he could not play contractor and builder and farmer and house restorer all at the same time without getting really sick. So I said, well, you know, I had nothing when I met you, so sell your business and that'll be fine, and you can stay home and take care of the farm and the other pieces that came with the farm that were legally called assets. Not quite so. So he took on doing that, and things went along. The next spring, I had been reading about gardening through the winter. And since I had moved up here in 1979 and married into this farming family the next year and thought, oh my God, I have to grow something, I started to realize during that time that nobody was having any fun. And I knew that for me, that was going to be a deal breaker. So I had to find a way to have fun doing all this. So I said to my husband one night after dinner, I said, I have a proposition for you. And for a minute, he got all excited. And I said, no, 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 it's about the garden. And he said, what could that be? Here's my proposition. I'm going to put in a vegetable garden next year on one condition. And he said, what? I said, you are not allowed in it. I thought the man was going to go to the street in his underwear and dance. He was so happy and yet thought I had really lost my mind, I'm sure. So he agreed, and the next spring I began planting my garden that didn't look like any other garden that this New England farm boy had ever seen, nor had his dad, who came and visited me often in the garden and said, what the hell are you doing? Because I was planting in squares, and I was doing interplanting and wide row planting and raised bed planting and teepees and all these kind of things, and I was doing it by the phases of the moon. So the one positive thing that he did say was, I remember the old timers used to do that. And that was it. But he told me that the peas I planted on April 27th were not going to make it, and that he didn't know what this square thing was about, but this was never going to happen. You plant peas on the 30th of May and you eat them on the 4th of July. And I said, well, I'm planting them on the 27th of April when the moon is waxing in Cancer, and we are going to eat them on my birthday on June 4th. And he kind of rolled his eyes and walked away. So on my birthday, I invited him and Bunny to dinner, and we ate my peas. And a few times after that, my husband and I would be out shopping or doing whatever, and we'd run into some of my father-in-law's cronies. And they would say, oh yeah, Clyde's been telling us about you. You're quite a gardener. I'd say, he never said it to me. But everybody else kind of had this idea. So it was kind of a funny thing that started happening. During that time, I was working at UNH, and we got a new secretary in the department, and she and her husband also had a small farm. She started telling me about herbs, and she said to me, you should have some herb plants. And I said, no herb plants. I have all I can do to manage this vegetable garden, and I've got a few flowers, and that's it. But the tipping point was that not only was she new in the department, she was new in the department as my supervisor. So we didn't want to do anything to rock that boat, so I said, okay, fine, I'll take your herbs. And she and her husband showed up at our house that weekend, and he opened the tailgate of the station wagon, and out came this big box thing that he had built, and it was full of plants. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? So we planted those plants in this funny little circle out back that my son, Adam, tilled up. And I went out and I said, Adam, it's a circle. What are we doing with a circle? And he said, well, the rototiller had a flat tire and it would only go like this. So I said, okay, what am I going to do? So I decided I would make it look like a pie, And then I could get in there and get in between the plants. And then my husband, as he always does, always has, and always probably will, as long as he's breathing, came rushing in and said, "You need a fence." So he built the fence, and it was beautiful. And it was a little 10-foot circle. And this time doesn't allow me to tell you that whole story, but I will tell you that I fell in love, and the plants captured my soul. And within 2 years, that little 10-foot circle grew to 26,000 square feet. And at that point, people started showing up in the garden and saying, "How much are your plants?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" "Well, you have these big beds. We figured you must be selling field-dug plants." "I am." "I am, $5 a clump. Bring your own bags." And they started doing that, and it worked out great. Well, I was so in love with the whole gardening thing now that I started growing lots of flowers, and I thought it would be fun to dry them. Started doing that in the basement of this 200-year-old farmhouse. So it was a challenge. But I started doing that and making wreaths and all this kind, and I was overrun, the house was full, and so started selling them at a flea market down in Newington. Did that for quite a while, but I would be in the basement every night until midnight making wreaths and stuff, and off to the flea market on Sunday morning and work in the computer science office all week. Now, mind you, you know how a man loves his basement. And mine lost his and was not wildly happy about it. So he said, "You know, I think you need to have a shed to dry your plants in." And I said, "Okay." And so he started working on that right away. And he said, "If I'm going to build a shed big enough for drying, I think I'll build it big enough so that you can sell your stuff out of there too, and maybe you won't have to go to the flea market." Okay. So that happened. Shortly after that, what happened was, now instead of being in the cellar every night till midnight, now I'm out in the shed every night till midnight with the wood fire going, and I'm making my stuff and open the shop on the weekend and sell it all. Well, pretty soon, I don't have time to go to the office anymore. So another long story that I'll skip, but ended up giving up my job at UNH and doing just this. Well, it wasn't long after that that I said, and I'm talking like months, and I said, "Wow, honey, I think I need a greenhouse because I need to start plants sooner." So one year he put the little greenhouse on the shop for my birthday. And then it was, "Oh, gee, people want to learn how to make these wreaths? Okay, we could do that." I said, "Honey, I think I need a classroom." And he's like, "Okay." So he built me a classroom. And I don't know that you can actually read this center plaque here, but it says, "No occupation so delightful to me as the culture of the earth, and no culture comparable to that of the garden." So then in 1995, after I'd been teaching people to make wreaths, and make wreaths out of herbs, and of course, as you figured out, I have a little gift of chat, and while I was teaching people to make these wreaths, I would be talking about the herbs that were in them and all the different ways we could use them. And in 1995, 6 people joined forces and came to me and said, "We want you to be our teacher." And I said, "Okay, what kind of wreath would you like to make?" And they said, "No, we want you to teach us about the medicine." I said, "I can't do that. I don't have any training for that. No, I can't do that." And they said, "You do it all the time and you don't even know it. We want to do this, and here we are, and we want to study with you, and we're going to pay you to do this." And I thought, alrighty then. So that was the first year of the Misty Meadows Herbal Apprenticeship Program. And we met every Friday for a year. And I've never worked so hard in my life, scrambling to try to figure out what I needed to teach them, what they wanted to learn, and how was I going to learn it fast enough to teach them next week. And that's how that first year went. And so this is some of the apprentices, and you can see the left-hand side, they're walking in the woods, they're getting to meet the plants. And in the center, and the bottom left and the bottom right, that first year we were in the shop in that little classroom, and there was no running water, we had an outhouse. So anytime that we needed anything with running water or we were going to make medicine, we had to do it in the house. And so my first year students learned how to make medicine on the wood cook stove, like great-great-granny did. And now comes 1998, and I'm thinking to myself a year before that, actually, I wasn't thinking to myself, I will share with you. I woke up one morning, and Spirit had whispered in my voice, in my ear, build a teaching center. And I woke up and said, are you daft? And so, as is my modus operandi, I went right to work in my head, figuring out how to make this work, and how could I save money and not buy any clothes and cut the grocery bill back and do all these things so that I could save $100,000 in 5 years and put up that building. Once again, my guy comes rushing in and says to me, people can't wait 5 years. I'm watching what you're doing. I'm watching how people respond to it. You need to do it now. And I felt a whole lot of pressure and wanted to smack him, of course. But his plan was, because he had so much faith in this, that we would use our savings and do this. So we did. We used our savings. He and I designed the building. Sean Schuyler built it. And here it is. And it's a beautiful building with a wonderful great room and a big fireplace and a huge table, plenty of room for the students to learn, a wonderful kitchen that we can easily have 15 students working in. And you can see that they have a lot of fun. And then up at the top right, this is a brand new program that we just added this spring. And these are the natural history programs that are being taught by Marilyn Gilmore, who just retired after 21 years at the Seacoast Science Center. And she's bringing all her family and pre-K nature programs to Misty Meadows, which is very, very exciting. So we're doing these programs for families and schools and homeschoolers and adult groups and clubs and anybody who will come and pay to do them. So the gardens are an integral part of everything that we do at Misty Meadows. The gardens are lovingly nurtured by a beautiful young woman named Jenna Culp. And her specialty is permaculture. And we also use biodynamic practices, and everything that we grow is grown organically. We are not certified because I refuse to pay the state for something that they have nothing to do with. So, but we grow beautiful plants, and we make spectacular medicine, and we serve our community. And people come from far, far and wide, which is always amazing to me, to find beautiful, clean herbal medicine and herbalists who can tell them about it and understand the plants. And not only their medicinal properties, but have spiritual relationships with the plants. And who encourage people to get down and put your hands in the dirt. And when we put our hands in the dirt and we sit down in the garden, we reconnect with she who is the mother of all of us, and that is Mother Earth. For without her, we are not here. And if we don't take care of her, we are not here. So we all need to clean up our act and do a better job. So then there's the harvest. And this is the most exciting time of the year. In the center here, you can see one of the students is up on a ladder picking ginkgo leaves off the tree to make medicine. And the student with the big basket just above her to the left has harvested big amounts of comfrey leaves. Comfrey is the most powerful connective tissue healer on the planet. And so we make all kinds of medicine with comfrey. And on the left is some of the apprentices and my grandson Damien, who is our harvest master. And they're gleaning the Sweet Annie, actually, off of the big, huge plants to make medicine. Sweet Annie is a natural anti-malarial, and we use it in the treatment of Lyme disease to fight the ravages of the co-infections of Lyme disease. And the top right is the inside of the drying shed. And we harvest the herbs, and they go in there on the racks, and the heat is turned up to 115 degrees, and lots of fans blowing around, and the medicine is dried there. At the bottom center is a picture of 3 apprentices in the back of my van at Steve Handler's farm 2 years ago, and that is the harvest of St. John's wort. And Steve had the most incredible field full of St. John's wort. I had never seen anything like it. And he gave us permission to harvest there, and I was delighted because his land is clean. And so we harvested there, and the next year we went back, and the plants are so funny, and lots of times we don't notice or realize how nomadic they are. And there was not a St. John's wort to be seen in that field. They had all taken off. So the harvest is a big and special time at Misty Meadows. And then it becomes the medicine. And here you can see in the center with the green wall there, these are 2 of the walls of herb jars. We have almost 400 different herbs and spices. And of those, we grow or wildcraft almost 200 of those. And last year we brought in almost 1,300 pounds of fresh medicine plants to be dried and prepared in other ways as well into medicines. So the students who come, they learn to work with the plants from finding them in the wild and identifying them and learning how to responsibly wildcraft in order to not decimate the colonies of plants. From there all the way up to making the medicines and knowing how to use them. They study anatomy and physiology so that they can understand these bodies that want to work with these healing plants. They know each other well. The human body and the healing plants have been together on this planet for a very long time. They know each other well, and they know how to work together. So when the students finish, they are very well versed. It takes them 7 months to go through the level 1 program, and from there they can go on. We also have advanced programs, or they can go on and study naturopathy, become a medical doctor. They can do pretty much anything they want with that. They're trained well enough that they can hang out their shingle and begin to see clients in an herbal practice. They can do almost anything they want with these plants and with the education. And the funny thing about the whole thing is that was never a goal that I set. I was just doing what I loved and what was fun, and it felt good, and it felt right, and it made me feel whole. And we've all heard that old funny adage, do what you love, the money will follow. I've learned that it's true. Not without a ton of hard work. And then there's the forest. There's about 60 acres of conserved land, and I think that was done in 2010. The public is welcome to visit anytime the shop is open, Wednesday through Saturday, between 10 and 5. We do ask people to check in, especially in the wintertime, if you're going to cross-country ski or snowshoe, just so that we know at the end of the day that you've come out and you're safe. The students spend a lot of time in the forest, as you can see. And the top left picture there is my grandson Damien when he was a little guy in the forest. And now he is at UNH studying environmental and resource economics. And he is planning to take over Misty Meadows. We're on the 10-year plan, and so in 8 years, it's his plan to take over and carry this work forward, which I'm very excited about, and I hope it works. But we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about Plan B. Success is in the details. Whether you're cattle farming, or you're herb farming, or you're making pasta, Success is in the details. For our kind of business, it's about making it look easy for the people who walk in, and they walk in the front door of the shop at Misty Meadows and they go, ah. And for any of you who have been there, you know that to be true. It takes a lot of work to make that happen for that customer. We have to be focused. We have to be present at all times, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally present, all the time. Realistic budgeting and wise spending better be also very high on your list. Very high. Fastidious accounting. If you don't run your business, you won't have one to run. And statistically, 95% of all small business startups fail in the first year. 75% of those fail in the next 4. So you better be present and know where your money is all the time. And you don't have to have a lot, but you have to use it wisely and carefully and know where it is. Having the right people on your team is critical. I'm blessed at Misty Meadows to have the most incredible staff. There are 7 of us now who work at Misty Meadows, unlike that first year after I left UNH when it was me and the garden and the shop and running back and forth. Now there are 7 of us, and it's wonderful. And every one of those people who works there gets up in the morning and feels blessed and can't wait to come to work. And me more than all of them. You want to protect your investment. Protect your investment with good insurance. And know what good insurance is. Because a lot of insurance doesn't mean it's good insurance. And I will say this out loud, I guess. And just because it's insurance that says it's for farmers does not necessarily mean that they have our best interest in mind. So shop, 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 and get what you really need for a price that you really want to pay. Vision. We always want to be having vision. And how do we have vision? We get quiet. We have to make time in our life to get quiet and open ourselves to receive those visions. We have to be creative and we have to be tenacious. And every single farmer I have ever known was creative and tenacious. And it doesn't matter what kind of farming you're doing. You have to be flexible to what your customers and your clients want. What's happening? What do my customers want? And is that something that I can make work with what I want? Finding out how to do that. Hard work, yeah, but you've got to take a break. You've got to take a break, and I think that's the hardest thing for any of us to learn, is to take a break. And take some of that hard-earned money and fly away. Go someplace. Get away from it all. Because staycations do not work for farmers. We have to leave. Do what you love. If you come from a farming family and you think it's your obligation to farm, and you feel like you are just tied to that thing with a shackle, it's never going to work for you. You're going to hate it. You're going to be miserable. You're probably going to go bankrupt and get really sick. So if you don't love it, don't do it. This is not work for the faint-hearted. And love what you do. Do what you love and love what you do. And if that is not the case, guess what? Change your mind. You have that opportunity every single day. We wake up every morning, we look in the mirror, we see who we are, we see where we are. And in that moment, we have the opportunity to change our lives. And if we don't, that's our choice. But we can't blame anybody else. And then to live and walk and breathe in gratitude. In gratitude for being able to do what you love. In gratitude for having what you have. Loving what you have. Gratitude is the thing that will keep you going and that will keep you healthy and will keep the people who come to your place coming back. Because when you walk in gratitude, you're happy and you're healthy and you look good and you feel good and people like that and they're going to gravitate to you. The future is coming, whether we like it or not. The future is coming, and we need to plan for it now. Will we retire? Will we not retire? Do you love what you do so much that you just want to do it until you fall over dead? That's what I'm going to do. Are you going to pass it down? Well, if you're going to pass it down, you might still be there. So we have to take care of ourselves. So maybe I'm going to pass this along to Damien, but I'm not going to hand it to him because it won't mean as much to him. And I'm not going to give it all away because I plan to live to be at least 110. And I need to take care of myself, so I'm working on that. And plan B, you got to have a plan B. What if Damien decides that he doesn't want to do that? Which I tell him all the time, he has every right to do. You got to have a plan B. So what's my plan B? Big sign, for sale. That's my plan B. So then there's always somebody great behind the scenes, and I've talked about him a little bit, and here he is. He's hiding in the back corner. This man has supported this endeavor right from the very beginning. From encouraging me to plant that vegetable garden, although it was really, there was a hidden agenda there. He was really excited because he wasn't going to have to do it. To buying that farm in the beginning, to planting that vegetable garden, to building the little shed, to building all the roads that go through the woods that my students use all the time. Even though we used those roads for 14 years to do horse-drawn sleigh rides and hay rides, which was great, but the time came when the insurance was cost prohibitive, we couldn't do that anymore, and this was getting so busy that there we were. And so, and there he is, you know, his idea to build the learning center, his idea to first get horses, his idea always comes forward to support this work. And so even though he stays behind the scenes, and we almost never see him over at the shop, unless he's searching for something that he can't find, and he needs to come and find me. We never see him, but he is always in the background making it all happen. And we all know that none of this would have happened and none of this would continue to happen without him. So, gratitude, you want to talk about gratitude. And that's it for me. So, questions?
Yeah, we're going to open up, given the time, we're going to open up to questions for both Wendy and Amanda. Amanda's got double duty now. So
I tried to cover everything you would ask questions about, but if you have more, feel free.
So have at it.
Yep.
Would you like any autumn olive?
Excuse me?
Would you like any autumn olive?
Autumn olive. Actually, no, thank you. we have a little autumn olive, but I really appreciate your generosity. But if you get more St. John's wort in your field, do give me a call.
Is there any certification at the
Yes,
end
they
of...
get a certification from me. And the funny thing is that in the beginning, I just started teaching because those people came and demanded me to teach. What's happened over 20 years, we're in the 20th year, and this program has gained national recognition. So these students can go anywhere they want and study natural health, natural medicine, more herbs. Yeah. So.
Anything else? I'd like to thank both Amanda and Wendy for joining us this evening, and really strongly encourage you that in a moment, if you need a little lift, go visit the horses and go visit the stables and call ahead. And if you need some advice or you want to just kind of hang out in a pretty cool place, go down to Misty Meadows and chum around with those folks down there. Lots of intimate connections in Lee between people and the land, and I think that we kind of see that tonight, so we're really lucky to have that. Thanks for coming out. This is the 4th of 5 installments. Our next installment is May 18th or 19th, I believe. Tuckaway Farm, the Coxes, and Who else is on that list? Woolmark is on the list. So that'll be happening in May, a week before Memorial Day. So there's some goodies back there, and you know, make sure you help yourself. Take a look at the books, pick up one of our Ag Farm brochures if you haven't done that yet. And thanks for everybody for coming out tonight, and thank our presenters.